Welcome back to another episode of Coffee and Coin. I have Shelly G on the pod with me today. Welcome, Shelly.
Hi, Allegra. Thanks for having me.
I'm really excited for this episode because you came to the MoneyWins channel and shared this incredible slew of wins that you had experienced after initially facing a layoff and racking up $40,000 in credit card debt. So I'm going to share that whole money win, but before I do, could you just introduce yourself, who you are, where you live, what you're about, what you do?
I live in Austin, Texas, and I'm 35 years old. I work as a provider partnerships manager at a health tech company, and my current salary is $102,000.
What kind of health tech?
So the company that I work for, I'm actually an RN by training, and I was doing patient care for probably a good 7 or 8 years, definitely burned out, and then transitioned to the industry side of things. And my experience has always been in fertility and women's health. So I worked at a number of different fertility clinics between the Dallas-Fort Worth and greater Los Angeles area before transferring over into the tech space. And the company that I work for now provides fertility and family forming benefits to employees, essentially. So you might work for a company that provides fertility benefits. And so I work for a fertility benefits provider.
I knew that, but I just wanted you to share because I think it's very cool. I mean, there are so many women that struggle with fertility, and I know the majority of US workers get their health care through their companies. So companies who are providing these benefits, I mean, I have personal friends who have literally weighed job offers by way of fertility benefits because that's a real important thing in life phase that a lot of my friends are in. Okay, I'm going to read this money win because it was so good. Okay, so you came in and said, finally, in June 2022, I was laid off from my job, at which time my salary was $89,500. I was unemployed for 10 months. It was a deeply transformative period of time that unfortunately led me to racking up nearly $40,000 in credit card debt. Thank you, and then you tagged, I'm assuming an accountability partner, Lauren R., for keeping me accountable during that time and helping me reframe the credit cards as my emergency fund. I knew what I wanted, and I kept my eyes on the prize. I finally landed my dream job in April 2023. Here's the too long didn't read of what's happened since then. 12% salary increase and 5% sign-on bonus. You started your new job at $100K. The new job provides $100 a month untaxed productivity stipend you can use for phone or internet bills. You reduced your internet bill by $15 a month by switching from Spectrum to Google Fiber, decreased your monthly cell phone bill from $68 to $15 by switching to Mint, paid off $14,000 in the credit card debt, removed PMI from your mortgage, saving you $118 a month, subsidized a 2-month Europe trip by renting out your home on Airbnb while away, earning $2,700 from Airbnb, which brought your total 2-month trip cost down to only $1,500. I mean, who doesn't want to live in Europe for 2 months for only $1,500? And then you said you rented out an Airbnb in Rome for 6 nights, literally right next to the Colosseum, getting the price down from $916 to $675 simply by messaging the host and asking. And then you went on to say you have a lot of work left to do, but you've also made a lot of progress. I love that you said that because I think some people are like, well, I can't share until I've cleared all the credit card debt. But like 14,000 out of 40 at this time, and I'm interested to see where you're at now, is huge and a big deal. And I love that you came back to the MoneyWins channel and shared all of these broken down into little bullets and told us specifically, because this is what I think so many women take away from the community aspect is women transparently sharing their moves. So someone might read that and be like, you can pay $15 a month for your phone by using Mint? Tell me more. Do you have a referral fee? And that happens all the time. And then the last thing you said was that your word for 2024 is optimize and challenge other women to share theirs. So I want to hear your whole story, including your chosen word of optimize. Take it away.
Yes. Gosh, it's been such a long journey since that post. And thank you for reading it out loud because I definitely have been in this headspace of like not feeling so good about myself. And I'm like, hold on a second, I'm actually kind of cool.
Literally so cool.
Gosh, okay. So since that post, I think I'll start with my word for 2024, which I chose as optimize. I think this was really born out of wanting to keep the momentum going from that post of looking at what I have and wanting to make the most of it. And so reducing the bills and not necessarily building new things, but coming from a place of, in my mind, of stability and just optimizing and making the most of what I have in terms of what are my current bills? How can I go line by line and figure out, is there a way to make this number smaller? And also because I'm still on this debt payoff journey, this is really my priority. And so building a business or looking at investing in a rental property or starting something new in that sense doesn't feel right to me in this moment. So that's where the word optimize came from. And I think this can be a tricky word. It can mean a lot of different things. And as the first couple months of the year went by, I had to like really sit down and get clear on what exactly I'm optimizing for. Because I think optimize can be so broad. You can optimize for anything. You can optimize for like luxury or wellness. But for me, it was like focusing on what I have and also optimizing my mental health. Like that's kind of my North Star is what I like to call it. And that was a big lesson that I learned in that 10-month period while I was out of work as well. So those are my two things that I'm optimizing for. So focusing on what I have and making improvements, whether that's reducing bills or building a community and having like events like potlucks or using my buy nothing group and focusing on keeping costs low, but also at the same time, what do I need to do to make sure that my mental health is in a good place while I'm on this journey?
Okay, I love that you took the time to not just say what your word is for the year, but then like pull back a little bit further and say, well, what does this word mean to me? Because we can define words so many different ways. And the other reason I'm double clicking on this is because, there are a lot of parts in the Well Circle where we ask you to sit down and journal about topics that are not necessarily financially related. We're like, where do you want to be in 10 years? What are your fears? And there are a lot of people, and I get it, there's no judgment here, that are like, excuse me, I'm here for the spreadsheets and the numbers and the facts and figures, but they're completely enmeshed, right? Like, you have to understand you and what's important to you before you can even put financial goals together. And not everybody, but I think that there are a certain type of person who are like, that's squishy. I don't have time for that. That's not important. And I find that most of those women circle back and realize, oh shit, I do need values because then I have a filter for my spending. I do need clarity on what my gut and intuition care about so that I can even put together a strategy for investing. And so anyways, I just appreciate that you didn't just pick a word, but you got a few months into the year and we're like, wait, let's be really thoughtful about what this word even means as it relates to the rest of the year. Okay, so tell me more about your story. What was the layoff like? What were the 10 months? You said you struggled with some mental health. If you're open to sharing, like, tell us. And credit card debt. I also want to normalize credit card debt. It is very common in America. And I watch a lot of people out there say debt is bad. Some people say all debt is bad. I completely disagree. I think debt is bad if it doesn't have a plan. Debt with a plan, not so bad. And I love that your accountability partner helped you realize it was your emergency fund, because what are you going to do if you go through your actual cash emergency reserves? You are going to depend on something else. And so for a lot of us, that's credit cards. I've been there. So yeah, to share a little bit about that portion of the story.
Yes. So I was laid off from, it was a startup that I was working for. And I worked there for about a year and a half. And it was the story that you hear about. It was like at the beginning of when the domino of layoffs started happening. And it was a Tuesday morning. My colleague Slacked me and she was like, hey, I just had a 15-minute meeting added to my calendar. And I just, in my head, I was like, today's the day. Like, this is happening. I checked my calendar. Sure enough, I also had the 15-minute meeting. It was super cold and short, maybe 5 minutes. Everything shut down, game over. And this was in spring. Oh no, this was, late spring of early summer of 22. And so I signed up for Factora. It was spring of that same year. So I was just getting started with my journey and then this happened. And I'm like, okay, I had this plan of like, this is going to be the year I'm going to, pay off medical bills. And was in a new house. I just purchased my first home the year prior. And so I was putting things together and was like, okay, this is going to be the year. Anyway, so I was laid off and I had a 2-month Europe trip planned. The layoff happened 3 days before I took my flight. I was planning to work remotely from Europe for 2 months. And so I was like, okay, I can sit at home and cry, or I can just go because I've paid for the damn thing already and I might as well just go. So I went and I had a wonderful time. And in that 10 months, I did a lot. It was this very, very interesting period of time. It was so good for so many reasons. I had time to travel. I spent time reading and cooking and trying new recipes and spending time with friends and going to therapy and just really thinking about like, what's next? Like, what is the next thing? Because for the longest time, I would say probably for the first maybe 7 months of it all, which is the majority of it, I had absolutely no idea. I knew what my skills and interests were, but I didn't know how to possibly put them together in a corporate setting and if that was possible. And in the entire time that I was job searching and interviewing, there was exactly one company and one role that I was interested in. And that's the role that I ended up with.
I just got chills hearing you say that. I also, okay, you've probably seen this in the Factora community. A lot of women have taken sabbaticals. And these are self-funded sabbaticals. These are like, I'm actually going to not work for 40 years in a row. I'm going to take this year or 18 months from now and take off like a short time. Now, it's really nice to be able to plan for that. And it also happens as it happens sometimes with a job layoff like this. And then you kind of ended up in a sabbatical, right? Like maybe not financially prepped like you would want to, but I love that you didn't stay at home, that you went on the trip. And all I could think when you were talking was probably the difference between the self-funded sabbatical, where it's like you've already prepared your mind to have this time and you know the length or the supposed length. And with you, it was more like, oh shit, what's next? I have to figure that out. And as you were talking about getting time to travel and sightsee and cook and be with friends, I was also just thinking about your nervous system, because in the planned sabbatical, it's almost like you can let your nervous system actually calm down. But in yours, it's like, oh, fuck, where am I going to make money from next? How do I use my skill? Like the way you described it, I was just like, oh, that's got to be so hard. And it's still beautiful that you got this time off, even though it wasn't your choice. Because I do think it's really, really wild that in Western culture and society, we're all planning to work from the end of college until we've made enough money to not be able to work without really paying attention how to even make enough money to not be able to work. That feels like the biggest dupe on like Americans, you know? It's just crazy. Like I didn't think anything of it until I had a startup and I worked my ass off doing this for 5 years. And I'm like, whew, I kind of need a break. I also had a baby. Like, where's my sabbatical? And now I've planned one for this year, which is amazing after this spring well circle wraps up. But anyways, it was just interesting hearing how it was almost like it forced you to take this time. And yet your nervous system probably couldn't relax because you didn't know what was next. So talk to me a little bit about where you're at now. So new job, new salary, and what are you doing with your money these days?
Since the new role, which started in April of 23, so just about a year ago now, which is absolutely wild to think about, I have been very, very diligent and focused on a few things. Keeping my word of the year in mind. So optimizing for what I have in terms of bills and making improvements and keeping costs low, but also for mental health. So I have been, I don't know where to begin. I have kept myself busy with a number of different things. I have been taking salsa classes once a week. I've been spending more time with my friends. I've definitely been making that a priority and getting creative with ways to spend time with friends in ways to keep costs low. So whether it's like, you know what, we're going to go on an errands date. Let's go run errands together and then maybe grab lunch and then just chit chat. And it's been so much fun. And it kind of reminds me of like, when you're younger and you didn't have a license and so you're driving around with a friend and you have that quality time in the car. I'm like, oh my God, this is so much fun. I also actually talking about driving. So last year I went on another 2-month Europe work away trip. And this time I had a job that I took with me. And about 2 weeks prior to leaving, my old faithful car that I had for over 10 years completely gave out for me, which was the plan. I wanted to run it to the ground, so I did. And in that 2-week period, I decided I was going to lift around town and just do that. And then 2 weeks, it's just for 2 weeks. And then I'm going to Europe and I'm not going to need a car anyway. So the plan was to buy a new car after I got back home. I got back home and I think Europe just really made me absolutely not want to have a car. So the plan was I had it picked out and everything, but I was like, you know what? I want to just experiment and see what it's like to live without a car in Austin, Texas. And so I experimented. I did for a couple months. And what I realized was that it's actually about $200 cheaper for me per month to lift around versus buy a new car, plus insurance, gas, maintenance, registration, stickers, all that good stuff. So I kept up with it. And I'm in Europe now for another 2 months. And so I haven't had a car since last September.
Okay. A lot of people don't know this about me, but I didn't drive for 13 years. I never, I learned late. I went to an all girls boarding school, so I didn't even drive until college. And I basically learned how to drive on the way to college. So let's just say I was a bad driver and I got into a bunch of fender benders. It was always problematic, didn't like it. Moved to New York, was so excited to not deal with a car, have to repark it, which was such a problem in my college town. And so anyways, I did not drive until I had my first daughter, and my husband was like, this is irresponsible at this point. Like, you have to be able to take the baby somewhere in the case of an emergency, which is fair, and I am a driver now. But I love not driving, and I did it for my first 5 years in Austin, Texas. We lived in areas where I could walk to a lot of things. It was always important to me to live somewhere that was walking distance to a workout something and a coffee something. And we did that for our first few houses. So anyways, kudos to you. And I just loved watching you list off, like, if you add it up, so many people think their car expense is really just how much they pay for the car. And it's like, no. We have an entire credit card for automotive. So we can see at the end of the year, not how much did it cost to pay off a car, but how much does it cost to put gas in the car, to pay the insurance on the car, to pay the tire, also the tolls. We have it hooked up to the tolls and any maintenance, which there's always something, right? So that's really cool that you did that. And I also love your dedication to 2 months in Europe annually. Good for you. Where are you right now?
So I am in Sicily. I visited Sicily for the first time last year. And this year I decided I wanted to, also completely fell in love with it, by the way. I decided to come back this year. I wanted to be back somewhere familiar. So I'm in Palermo for 1 month and I'm finishing up my first month. And then this is my last week in Palermo, and Sunday I'll be going to Syracuse, which is on the east end of the island. So I'll be there for 1 month. And then I'll be back home in Austin towards the end of May. So it's definitely an annual thing. I remember having this, what's it called? Like a pipe dream, I think is the phrase. Like, this was a vision, a dream that I had when I was much younger. I'm 35 now, and I just started doing these remote months 3 years ago, and it's absolutely amazing. I feel so lucky that I get to do this, and I am also looking and making plans for moving to Europe in the second half of next year.
Wow, I love that. Honestly, that's so cool. And then I'm also wondering, have you read the book? Is it called From Scratch?
I don't think I've read it. It sounds very familiar.
I'm pretty sure that it's set in Sicily. I could be wrong about that, but Zoe Saldana is the actress that plays the woman in the Netflix show. I didn't even know there was a Netflix show, but I always treat myself at the airport to a book for a vacation. And I picked that one up and I was like, I need to move here. This is a beautiful life. Somewhere in Italy. I thought it was Sicily.
This was also something that came out of that 10-month period of being unemployed. I really had time to think about, okay, when I do start working again, what do I want my life to look like? Because prior to this gap, I was going from job to job without a plan. I think the only really plan or vision that I had in terms of career was I got to the point of I knew I wanted to switch from bedside nursing to more of a business type role. But I didn't have career goals. I didn't have an idea of what I wanted my life to look like. I knew I wanted to work from home, but I didn't know what work I actually wanted to do. And then I landed this role, which is a provider partnerships role. And I think I'm pretty good at it. So I'm pretty pleased. I am still using all my clinical knowledge. I get to lean on that I've built over the years in the fertility space. I'm working with a lot of people that, for example, fertility providers, physicians, clinics that I used to work at as a fertility nurse. I'm now managing relationships with those providers. So it's been a really cool kind of transition. And I think earlier you had mentioned like the difference between the forced sabbatical versus a planned sabbatical. So it was exactly like that. It was two extremes that I experienced in that period of time. It was really good for all of the millions of reasons, some of which I shared. And it was also extremely stressful because I'm trying to figure out what the hell I want to do with my life. And when you get to like month 6+ of job searching, you're wondering if you're even speaking English anymore and if you have anything to offer the world. So it was a very conflicting, like it was like two extremes. And since then, I've also been able to implement these things of like, okay, I know minimum 2 months a year, I want to be away and I want to explore and I want to do that. And then I also, when I'm at home, I want to really be at home and I want to do the Austin things and be in love with Austin and spend time with my friends and be very intentional about how I'm spending my time and not just waiting to, do these one-off big trips. And also as a result, I have kind of put together a plan of doing planned sabbaticals. So right now I'm working towards, after 4 years of work, to take 6 to 12 months off. I'm leaning towards 6 months of planned sabbatical, but it was just so eye-opening to have that break and know that it's actually really okay to not work. Like, it's actually really healthy. And I know that when I've put in my 4 years of work that I've determined for myself, like that's kind of my goal. I'm like, okay, every 4 years is what I have in mind right now. I want to take a break. But when I get to that place and I have my last day of work, it's going to be amazing because I'm going to have the savings to support myself. I'm going to have a vision. I'm going to be able to relax my nervous system and the way that I want to and not have to worry about all of the things that I had on my plate in the previous unplanned sabbatical. So those are some of the things that I am looking forward to and working towards since the time that I've started working.
I love that. I love just the sentence you said about it's actually okay to not work. It is okay to not work, and that's so hard to believe. It was hard for me to believe. I don't know if I actually fully believe it, but as you were saying it, I was like, she's right. And okay, so talk to me about where you are with your numbers today. We love all the numbers. Where are you at with your net worth, with your debt repayment, anything else?
Absolutely. So I did update my spreadsheet this morning for our chat. My salary is currently $102,000. I got my little 2% merit increase just a few weeks ago, but you know what? I'll take it. So 102K is where I'm at right now with my salary. I have, I think 28,000 of credit card debt to go. So I haven't made too much progress since that initial 14K lump, but I did transition that lump of money to 0% interest cards. So I have breathing room. I'm working on establishing a very baby emergency fund. My goal one is $4,000, which I'm pleased to say I'm at $2,400 right now, which is very humbling, but you know what? Baby steps. So that's and let's see, the credit card debt, savings, and my net worth is currently about 204,000. When I started the Wealth Circle, let's see, I think I was at 180 and right now I'm at 204. Yeah.
And what's the bulk of your net worth from? You said you own a home, and then I'm assuming maybe retirement or other stock market investments?
Yes, so I do own a home. It's a 3-2 in Austin, North Austin. And then the rest comes from 401ks, Roth IRA, and then I have 2 HSA accounts. And then I have a baby brokerage that I've been just kind of spoon feeding here and there.
I love that. A baby brokerage that you spoon feed. Hey,
yeah.
a spoon at a time counts. Okay, well, this has been such a fun episode. I'm so appreciative of you sharing what was obviously a unexpected detour in your life, but many financial benefits have come from it, even if you still have a debt journey left to pay. And listeners, she moved that $28,000 over to a 0% interest card, which is such a great tactic to keep you from having to pay interest on top of your debt number. You usually pay a fee to do that, but it's pretty nominal and it's one time. And then do you know how long your 0% interest time period is?
So it's spread across 2 cards. The first one I think is 15 months, and then the second one is 18 months. So right. 15 and 18. So I have breathing room to meet my goals in the meantime.
I love it. Okay, well then just one last question for me. If you were to receive an anonymous $50,000 deposit into your checking account today, what would you do with it tomorrow?
I love this question. I would firstly pay off my credit card debt, fill up my emergency fund, and I would do like an all out, like 7-star luxurious spa day and like probably tag on a night at a hotel. Like I want it all, like hair, nails, massage, like fancy everything. That's what I would do.
I love it so much. It's so clear. It's like, she didn't add the numbers, but I heard the numbers in my head. It was like 28 gone to credit card debt. 4 to meet the baby emergency fund goal, or maybe a little bit more, and then a ball out luxurious spa day that I'm just envisioning is in Europe. I don't know, but
I like that. Great idea.
Well, thank you, Shelly. It was so great to have you on this episode. And the last thing we didn't talk about is your accountability partner. Is that someone that you still meet with, or how have you guys helped each other?
So I met my accountability partners. I have 3 actually, through Factura. So the first one I met like randomly through a Facebook group when I was in my early days after I moved to Austin, and we connected. She's the one who introduced me to Factura, and became good friends. And we started I signed up for Factura, of course, and then we were having monthly accountability meetings. And I now have another couple of gals also through Factura in Austin that I meet with monthly as well. So I love this support. It makes such a big difference. And I think especially as a single woman, I wish everybody would do this, because I don't think you realize how valuable it is until you have it. And it's like, oh my God, I have people to talk to about this stuff that's swimming around in my head, and like these goals, and we can help each other. And then as you talk to people and somebody has a resource I've got somebody helping me with my lawn, and do you know a paint guy, and where'd you get your Mint Mobile? And it's just, the community aspect is so incredible. So I'm really grateful to Factura for that.
Thank you for saying that. I think something I've always noticed is that, and for me as well, I don't really want to pay for community because I feel like I'm a social person and I can make my own community. But I actually think that the Factora community is pretty priceless at this point. Like, these are real women. They're all level set by going through the wealth circle. And now we're going to be building wealth for the remainder of our life. So the ability to ask and share and volley ideas in a safe space that we've all grown into and grown up with is really special. And so thank you for saying that.